Emily King, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. If someone were to meet you in an elevator and they ask you what you did for work, I know that's going to sound a bit...
Yeah, well...
Hang on, what sort of podcast is this? If they ask you what you did for work, how would you describe it? What would you say?
Look, I actually never know what to say when people say this because I'm like, I don't want to say I'm an online coach because I think people think online coach and they're like, flop. I always say like, I'm a health advisor or I'm a nutrition advisor. Or I say I'm a nurse if they're like someone that's definitely not going to know what that is because that's what I used to be. So really depends. Am I trying to pitch this person or am I just like in passing? Look, usually it's health advisor or nutrition advisor and they're like, oh, that's amazing. So yeah. What I do.
Well, that's it. Because in this day and age, everyone's a coach.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And everyone's a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So sometimes we sort of pause to think, let's avoid the stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say to people, I help people look and feel good naked. They go, you're a surgeon. I'm like, not quite, not quite. So why coaching for you? If we roll back, you said you were a nurse.
Yeah.
Why coaching? How did you get into the fitness industry? What inspired you to go down this road?
Look, so many things. I was nursing straight out of school, and it was something that I kind of just fell into because my mum was a nurse, and I really loved looking after people. And then I started doing my own training. My mum got me into training. I was doing Les Mills, of course, and it was something that felt really natural to me in terms of just how to move my body. And I love strength training and making myself stronger and seeing the positive impact on everything in my life. And then doing that at the same time as nursing, I essentially started doing my PT because I was like, I just want to know more. I didn't do it at that time to be a coach. I just wanted to know more about it in general. And then it just kind of all happened really naturally. I was doing PT then at the time as well as doing nursing. And I was like, which one do I love more? Do I love, looking after people at the end when it's kind of a bit too late or catching people at the start when I could actually make a difference? So I started moving towards more of the PT and then I moved from Townsville to Gold Coast and I didn't have a job with nursing straight away. And I was like, well, I guess I got to make this online thing work. So that's when I went full into online training. And then it was just kind of history from there. And I think for me, I love being able to change people's mind when it comes to nutrition and training and how it's not about just being skinny or losing weight. It's about looking after yourself and being functional and being fit and looking after your family that way as well.
I like how you position that in terms of the nursing, either trying to help people towards the end or trying to prevent. Yeah. Prevention rather than cure, right? Yeah. And we all say like health is the first wealth and sometimes you don't realize what you've got till it's gone.
Yeah.
From coaching nurses, and I'm sure you've coached them yourself.
Yeah.
I always find it fascinating, the nurses that work in that sector.
Yeah.
When they ask people, what are some things that maybe if you could go back in time, you'd change? And often they say, you know what, I'd just not take things for granted. I'd have fun and I'd do things. But the thing is, to do things, we need the health, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
Exactly.
When people think of you now, they may think of the physique athlete.
Yeah.
But you're also a mum as well.
Yeah, I think people actually forget that I am a parent. And yeah, so I have a 3-year-old or 3.5-year-old. Luna, yeah. And so
Love the name.
That's a whole thing. Yeah, and everyone's like, my dog's called Luna.
Thank you. That's
thank
great.
You very much.
People love their dogs. It's
exactly. It's fine.
How has being a parent changed your life around being an athlete specifically? Because, we've chatted in the gym about time management.
Yeah.
And we think, oh, I've not got any time. And that's another story.
Yeah.
But then you have a child and then you realize, now I really have no time.
Yeah.
But aside from that, even just some other things that have helped you maybe reframe. People say to me, and I'm not a parent yet, but when you have a child, it does change things. How has it really affected you, like in general, but also as a physique athlete?
Look, I think it's just made me more efficient at everything. Like made me more efficient at my work, made me more efficient in my day-to-day tasks, made me more efficient in the gym. I don't go in there just kind of doing anything. I go in there with a clear plan of what I need to do. In the past, though, I would have been like, I have 3 hours to train. I'm just going to fuck around for that time. And it's made me realize how much I can get done in the time that I have, which is really important because I think a lot of people say like they don't have time, but you don't need a lot of time. You need just enough time, and like I said, it has made me so efficient in my work. Like I have set clear time frames of when I'm working, of when I'm training, and then when I'm spending family time. And for me, that's been a complete game changer in terms of the progress that I've made as like professionally, in my athleticism as well, and just in like general happiness. Because a lot of the times prior to having Luna, I was mixing all those things. I was the same time I was trying to change, I was working, and then at the same time I was working, I was trying to do family stuff, and it felt so messy. But now it just feels really like clear of what I need to do on a daily basis. So for me, it's like been a nice journey. At the start, it was a huge shock because the time was like the time that you have is no longer yours in so many senses. It's like the time that a normal person hasn't, not a normal person, well, a childless person, I wouldn't say that's normal, pre-children, you have this time in the afternoon from like 4 p.m. until like 10 p.m. that you want to, prep your meals or, just watch a TV show, do a bit of work. Literally, you lose that block as a parent because they come home and like you want to do things with them, but then there's like bath time, bedtime, put them to bed. And if your child, like Luna, doesn't do the whole like, oh, go to bed, pat them, go to sleep, like we have to sleep with her essentially to get her to sleep. So that's like a 2-hour block that we lose. So you have to be really organized with your time. Otherwise, you just end up feeling like you have like no time to do anything. So that's why during the day, I get all my work done between my work hours, and I have that time then to spend with her and to like have as no guilt time to do that. Because if I had, like a lot of times I used to lie there at the beginning and be like, I need to be somewhere else right now. I need to be working and I'm going to fall behind and all this type of awful thoughts. But like now I just lie there. I'm like, I'm meant to be exactly where I am right now, doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing. Yeah, that was a long rant, but
that's good.
Yeah, I feel like I have more peace with my time now. Like before, I just was all over the place with everything.
Yeah, it's ironic. It's almost like it's made you become more efficient.
100%.
More grateful, more structured.
Yeah.
Also, you make that point of this is exactly where I'm meant to be right now.
Yeah.
You don't get that time back. Like,
yeah,
with a pet, and even then, you should spend time with the pet. But it gets to a point, the lifespan's a lot shorter.
Yeah.
But with your child, you just don't get that back.
Yeah.
So I think maybe flip side is also you get to spend, you and Matt, more time with Luna because you work for yourselves. You don't have to be at an office.
Yeah.
Yes, you still got constraints of time. So there's almost, again, it's like every situation, there's positives and negatives.
Yeah.
This is something that I really did want to touch on as well.
Yeah.
What is your response to clients and people when they say, I don't have time, when they've got kids, when they've got, 9 till 5 jobs and things like that? Yeah. How do you approach that?
Like, I think there's like a 2-part kind of process to this. It's first, like, are we setting that client realistic outcomes or expectations? Like, am I someone coming and going, well, you have to work your 9 to 5, but then you also have to train 5 to 6 days a week? Mm-hmm. Because then I'm like, yeah, sure, that person doesn't have a lot of time. I would be coming in if they're already someone that's like, I don't have a lot of time, going, okay, maybe let's try a 3-day training plan. And maybe that's enough. And make that journey specific to them. Because I think that's where a lot of parents get lost, is that they think they need to be training every day and then doing a 9 to 5. And that doesn't leave them a lot of time. But what I would recommend is a lot of my clients do this who do 9 to 5, is they train either early in the morning before their kid has got up. So that's like early. And like, I'm not an early riser whatsoever, but this is probably what I would do if I was in that position. I would train early. So then I'm training at 4 a.m., maybe at home or maybe a gym really close. So you can train, go there, come back, kids wake up, you're spending the morning with them, you go to work, you come home, and then you have the whole afternoon to spend with them. Or you kind of just do the 3-day plan and you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the afternoons, half an hour on the way home from work or whatever it is, depending if your partner can look after the children or if they're at school or whatever they're doing. And then just make it really specific to them. Like, I totally empathize with people that have those types of situations, which is a lot, but there is ways to work around it. And you just have to be willing to make that sacrifice in terms of getting up early or sacrificing a little bit of time at the end of the day. And that's probably my time thing, because ultimately it's like, we do it or we don't do it. Like, the time's going to pass. Would I rather spend my time working towards some fitness goal and keeping myself happy and healthy for me and my family? Or would I just like let myself, become unconditioned and not strong and then end up frail in 10 years, wishing that I'd done that.
Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? At the end of the day, there's always a sacrifice.
Yeah.
There's always someone with a better or a worse situation. Like you said, the irony is sometimes with the attitude, like you said, it's really great. I think that point about setting realistic targets and expectations.
Yeah.
Because people do think they've got to be in the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And they've got to eat every 2 hours. You know, these are myths we've slayed years ago.
Yeah.
But when we think about the actual fundamentals of training and nutrition, how we can bend those to our reality, it's viable.
Yeah.
I always say to clients, you've got to eat. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So why not just have a little bit more effort and track your food?
Yeah.
You've got to sleep anyway. Yeah, you're right. You know what? It might be that time for parents. They've got to get up a little early, but maybe if you've got that 9 till 5, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to move your body in some way. So why not do it a little bit more strategically with a plan? There's those sorts of things that are always happening. And then there's that, like you said, that longevity thing, which I think is so good. I got into health and fitness because my mum and dad were fit people.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how fortunate I was. You know, I took it for granted. I'm an only child. I would go home and I would have these dinners, and you know, I didn't know, but I'd go around to my friends and it was always like fried food or takeaway. And as a kid, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I was like, McDonald's, Happy Meals, you know, get as much sweets as I could. But as I grew up and I realized, and you learn and you think, oh, actually, this is not great. I realized that how much my parents had inspired me.
Yeah.
And I think going back to what you said about leading by example, but also longevity, you know, you get a lot of people say, oh yeah, but I have to go to work and provide for my kids and this, that, and the other. And I go, yeah, look, you've got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Big empathy with that. But 1, you don't spend time with your kids.
Yeah.
2, you're robbing your health because you're working yourself into the ground. Aren't those 2 things defeating the very purpose of the thing you're trying to sustain, which is actually the family life?
Yeah.
And sometimes that perspective is zooming out and going, you know what, maybe one of my clients, I just use this quote. He goes, some people can't afford not to.
Yeah.
Some people can't afford not to actually do these things.
Yeah.
What are the advantages of having a partner in crime, Matt, who is also, you know, into the physique sports as well? There's a bit of a saying that I disagree with. Opposites attract in relation to you need a partner who's very different. Of course, opposites attract. Yeah. But they say, oh, you know, you shouldn't have a partner in the same industry. I really disagree when it comes to physique sports. Yeah. I think it's such a nuance, such a specific thing that when you're going through prep, when you're going through that gaining phase, that empathy and that understanding of, hey, like I'll hold the fort or we're doing this together.
Yeah.
I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Is really critical.
Yeah.
How has that helped you, and what do you think the advantages are of having Matt, who's like in the business with you, doing and living and breathing the same thing?
Well, like you said, he knows exactly how it feels, and that's one of the biggest things, because I think when you're going through like a prep or when you're running a business, like those are feelings that you only really know until you're in it. And like you said, also when one of us is having a bad day, the other one can be the person that pulls you out. Like it's very rarely that we both have a bad day, because I will see him in a bad mood and I'll be like, oh, I guess it's time for me to, you know, pull my bootstraps up and take one for the team. And that's what he does on the other side of that. So, I love ahead when I hear girls, especially, they'll say like, I don't want a guy in the industry, like a bodybuilder or a coach. And you're like, but why? Like they look after themselves. They take pride in what they look like. They're into their health and fitness. Like, are you just generalizing or stereotyping like a bodybuilder like on steroids that only cares about themselves? Like they're not all like that, you know, like maybe there's 1 or 2 that are like just like that. But I think as we age as bodybuilders and people in the industry, we get more health focused. We get, you know, less into ourselves, but I don't think we're actually into ourselves. I think we just give a fuck about what we look like. And I think that's different, right? Like, so I agree with you too. It's like, it's just the total understanding of being in the same boat all the time. Like Matt and myself are together all day long, all the time, right? So I think like finding a partner is finding someone that is going to support you in what you do and that also understands what you're going through. And I think that's really important. So
I think some of the best advice that I've had off people that have been in very successful relationships is you need to marry your best friend.
Yeah.
You need to be attracted to them, but you need to marry your best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you spend that much time with someone, it's everything, you know, and it's through the good and bad and the ugly. And, you know, like you said, sometimes you gotta, all right, I got to pick up the slack here because it's not always going to be a 50-50.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a relationship is a give and take. And yeah, it's fascinating when it comes to those things. Maybe like you said with the stereotype, I think you're right. Ironically, I've always found the people who are really serious, when I say serious, I mean, you know, they're not taking it too seriously, but they're invested in their health. They're generally getting to, you know, positions with their physique that other people don't get to. They're usually the loveliest people.
Yeah.
Like I grew up training in New Zealand in a gym. And I remember my dad said, there's the fella in there, Mike, you'll know him. He's a big fella, huge guy. Anyway, I introduced myself to him one day and I said, you know my dad, Paul? And he goes, yeah. Anyway, the guy would never take his top off. And he did one day. And I remember I was like, I mean, the guy was huge, but he was almost, he was more conservative than a lot of people, but he was so softly spoken. He was the loveliest guy, but people were intimidated by him.
Yeah.
But they never kind of gave him the opportunity. He was just the stereotype bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's a lot of sometimes people in between, or you get, you know, the odd person who maybe is a bit full of gas and they're a bit bravado. And then, like you said, you know, maybe that's
then all bodybuilders are like that, you know, like,
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be, if you look good, you feel good, you're going to be confident.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is a front. I've noticed that, especially for me, I got into training like a lot of people because I got picked on.
Yeah.
You know, I lived in a part of the world that looked like the Milky Bar kid, had the glasses, the blonde hair.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to pick on him.
Yeah.
And that was just part of it. And I thought, I want to go to the gym. And it was for the wrong reasons. It was to build, as Frank Zane would say, the armor. Yeah. The armor of like, well, if I get big and strong, girls will like me. Guys will respect me.
Do you know, I think it always starts like that though. Like in anyone's story, it always starts on a different type of fuel. And you're like, is it necessarily bad? Like you just don't want to stay on that fuel forever.
Correct. And I think that's the difference. Some people maybe stay there.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the things that they do to their body is that there's something internally that's not been met, that they've not addressed.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to, as my friend would say, go on the hero's journey at some point, which is interesting as well. What are some things, if you could change about the coaching industry, you would, in relation to maybe the way it's prefaced? I think now more than ever in the fitness industry, it's oversaturated. Yeah. It's a great place to be, but it's a very confusing place to be.
Yeah. Look, I would love if there was like a governing body that was looking over like things like content and coaches' qualifications, and especially like in a place like TikTok or Instagram where the most crazy shit that you say gets more likes than coaches that have zero morals or ethics will continue to pull on that string, right? And create like an audience for themselves and create money behind it. So like, I do think that there needs to be someone that holds them accountable. And I saw it, you know, Sheridan. I love her, like that she does like the stitching stuff, and she stopped doing it because she's like, I got bad attention essentially. I don't want people to think I'm that person. But I'm like, there needs to be someone that holds people accountable. And there is someone like that in all industries except for this one. And we're not doing it to be absolute cunts. We're just doing it because there is someone out there that's going, yes, this is right when it's not right. And there's vulnerable people that listen to these absolute knobs and they believe what they say. So, and that's what I find a problem with. So like, there just needs to be someone to say yes or no, or there needs to be someone that checks credentials, qualification, even though that's kind of bullshit now because you can get a qualification pretty easily. But yeah, it is saturated, I agree, but it's also like saturated by noobs. So if you're a good coach and you do good job and you do good coaching and you're nice to people, you will do well. Like, but if you are kind of a shit coach and you don't do a good job, but then obviously like business is not fair, and people with big titties and blonde hair and a BBL will always do better than people who have big brains. Unfortunately, that is just business, right? Yeah. So we can only do what we can do, right?
The barrier to entry needs to be higher. Yeah. There needs to be more friction.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said about the governing body is an interesting one because, like you said, anyone can get out of a cereal box course. Now, in New Zealand, I did a sport exercise science degree and it was good.
Yeah.
But it was when I applied it, I really learned.
Yeah.
And I think there should be even a transition period as well for PTs where it's like, hey, you should do so many hours in person.
Yeah.
The reason that I am a competent, good online coach is only because of the hours I have spent in person. I have just learned so much and made so many mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that is not there for people as well. And like you said, there's a bit of an unfair advantage. And we were talking about this before, you know, there's that first bit of criteria is, do you lead by example? Well, you might look good, but how have you got there? Maybe there is some misleading, you know, things going on. It's the reason I'm really passionate about it, because I got misled.
Yeah.
Even back then, you know, I was reading magazines and, you know, I was doing these bullshit workouts and I was doing these diets. I had no idea, no clue. And it was sifting through Simply Shredded, coming across people like Matt Ogus, who led me on to people like Eric Helms, 3DMG. And then you go down the rabbit hole and then you go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also I had the physiology textbook. And if I read it, I probably would have knew 80% of more than most trainers, that application side of things. But you get a lot of these people who are kind of, they might have a big following and they might get people by proxy because of the following.
Yeah.
For example, there was a coach that I used to coach at EMF, and there was a lady who came in and she had a good look and she had a big following. Yeah. And she did PTing for maybe a month. Yeah. And she went online and she lived in Bali and did all the rest of it. You know the type.
As they all do.
And she goes, Alex, I'm so annoyed by it. And I said, I get it. I feel your frustration. But I said, look, at the end of the day, this individual is not a good coach. Yeah. She will not last. And just because she has a big following and she might have more clients than you, supposedly, it doesn't actually make her a better coach. You're better to be doing what you're doing, have it a little harder, not have all the social media following, build it with quality, because with quality comes quantity. Yeah. And as you know, a lot of the following doesn't always translate to income. Yeah. And then 5 or 10 years down the track, we see that, oh, actually, they're now selling something else. Yeah. Because there's a price.
Now they've opened an apparel store or something like that. Like, you need to, I think as a coach, building that foundation is so important, because you'll always be successful. And it's like the people that get hot real quick, you're like, that's dangerous stuff.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to be like one of those people. And at the start, I used to be quite like jaded about these kind of people that did get success really quickly, especially if they were like, you know, pretty privileged and all those types of things. But now I'm like, good on them. Like, easy come, easy go. They'll get their shit when it comes to them. And also, like, there is enough people in this world for everyone. So, like, I again went through a phase where I was like, had friends in the industry and I was like a little bit jealous of them that they were doing well. And I think coming out the other end of that, I'm like, there's that many people in the world. Like, we don't need to be jealous of our friend who's doing well. Like, we need to be happy for them, because there is so many people to service in this world.
Yeah. The market always makes room for good people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I think, like, when you outwardly look, especially, you know, comparison's the thief of joy. Yeah. And you look at coaches maybe that are a bit further down the track and maybe there's some jealousy, but ultimately it's, if you're confident in what you do, like, one of my favorite quotes is, if not my favorite, actions speak louder than words. Yeah. Let your results speak for themselves. Yeah. Focusing on the basics will always get you that trajectory. Yeah. And you said before, if you're a good person, you do great work for good people. Yeah. You'll never be out of business.
That's all you need to do, literally. Like, let that be what creates the income, because it's always going to hang around. Like, we have such a strong community of people that love what we do, because what we do is truth, you know, and it's genuine, and they're not going to leave unless they're like, oh, well, I don't need you because I've achieved anything. But a lot of them stick around anyway, just for shits and gigs. So
this is true. This is true. So with that said, what are things that you wish people coming into the fitness industry on the opposite end of it, people who want to improve the way they look and feel, what do you wish they knew more? If we could move the bullshit out the way and we could kind of get to the juice of what actually moves the needle, what are the things that really leverage change in the body? What are things that you'd really want to get in front of people, like you do on your social media?
I literally just want people to know how easy and simple weight loss can be, without all of the shit, the carnivore, the keto, 75 hard, like, all move it out of the way and just understand that they just need to eat in a calorie deficit consistently. And I understand there's a lot of behaviors behind that drive the want to eat and stuff like that. But we need to start there first. I think everyone needs to look at their behaviors around food and their relationship with food prior to even looking at any type of coaching. Because if we can fix what drives someone to do the things that they do, then that's going to create such a healthy relationship with food, right? Like, and I get so many questions, how to stop binge eating, how to stop emotional eating. And I'm like, that's not something that I do because I'm not a psychologist. And that's who you need to see. Like, stop going to the 20-year-old new coach about binge eating and emotional eating because they don't have a fucking clue, and they shouldn't be giving you nutrition advice. They should be sending you and referring you to a psychologist. So as soon as someone kind of comes up with red flags for us in our company, we will take them on if they're happy to like work in conjunction with a psychologist. But usually we'll be like, hey, like what you need is over here first. Then once that is sorted, come back because it's going to be so much easier. But if you're trying to shove tracking and meal plans on top of behaviors and emotions that aren't healed, it's just a shit show. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think like we need to look at psychology first before we look at nutrition. And that doesn't make me a lot of money because obviously I'm turning people away, but it's better for people long term.
It's the ethical thing to do.
Yeah.
To refer to genuine professionals. Like you said, there's an uproar now I see of females mainly, not to pick on them, but it's true.
Do it.
I'm going to use some words. Thrive. Empowerment.
Slay.
Now, what annoys me about females, and it seems to be, I think some males do it as well. I think there's a bit of an uproar, to be fair. I'm not having to go at females. It's just, it is the way it seems to go. It seems to be business coaches dressing in this cream color.
Yeah.
Who are focusing on helping people with psychology, even though they're not psychologists and they've had very little life experience, like you said.
Yeah.
And they're masquerading health and fitness as this mental tool. What I have a problem is they say, take your power back.
Yeah.
And they're using this to improve health and fitness, yet the pictures are of women half naked in very seductive poses. And I'm thinking, well, that's more objectification than it is empowerment. And me and you were all about looking good. That's what we do for people. Yeah. It's part of it. Yes, we help people build great relationships with health and fitness and the body self-image first. But we know, we are very transparent about the fact we love to look good naked. We've said it before, right?
Yeah.
But we make no qualms about that.
Yeah.
But I think when you try to masquerade it as something else, and you, like you said, you dive into that psychological space because now it's a very like, oh, Tabby, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Can't say that. There's actually genuinely people who struggle out there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who pretend.
Yeah.
And I think by having this sort of niche or this uproar of women who are just constantly coming out with the same thing, I see it and go, you're just another one.
Yeah.
And it's just so saturated. What are your thoughts on these types of coaches and I guess this sort of angle?
Literally, this is a life cycle of those people. It's like, I started out as a PT, I sucked. I went online, I sucked. Now I am a mindset coach. I also suck at that. Then they go on to business coaching usually after that.
There's a neonatal one as well. Don't forget that.
Oh.
Have you heard that one?
No.
Oh, women who've had babies and they specialize in the...
Oh, like they go through pregnancy and then they're like, I'm a prenatal postnatal coach. And like, we can see it as people in the industry. Like, we know what you're doing. And like, I wish them all the luck with something when they find it. But I also think these people are just going in for money. And that's what's driving their changes from one thing to another, because it's like shiny object syndrome, where you're like, oh, this is a really good niche, like this is hot right now, let's do this. And they're like, oh wait, this wasn't really what I thought it would be. Okay, I'll go to the next thing. And like, that's that type of person. And I don't believe at all that a 20-year-old person can be a mindset coach or a life coach. You have not even experienced life in order to guide people through that. And I don't think anyone should be a life coach unless they are like qualified counselor or something like that. I don't know the degrees of people that do that, but yeah. And I look, it was something that when all that mindset came up, I was like in business going, oh, should we put on someone that does that? And then I was like, hold the fuck up. This is not what we do. We do diet and training, because once you start delving into that, that's the more of the client that you get. And do you want the client that is actually in need of psychological help, and then they're shoving them down a 12-week course that is not going to help them at all? It actually just brings up, a lot of these courses bring up all this trauma without the ability to actually do anything about it because they're not qualified. So they're like, what happened to you as a child? Bring it up, make it worse. And they're like, oh, well, hopefully that fixed you. See you later. Like, so it's, I don't like them at all because I can see the flow from one thing to another, and they're actually not out to help people whatsoever. They might think they are, but they've gone from one thing to another themselves. And these usually people that are like unhealed people as well. They're just like, oh, this is hot. This is what's trending right now, and thrive.
That's it. Yeah, it is. It's a trend, and it seems to be unfair because, as you said, some of these people need genuine help.
Yeah.
And there are people out there.
Yeah.
You know, there are very good psychologists and people who have not only the qualification but the experience as well. Because I think, like you said, you need some life experience in that to be able to empathize and interact. And look, we all start somewhere. And if that's what the road you want to go down with, go and actually study psychology and work under a psychologist and slowly expose yourself to that and just be that. But like you said, when you're changing your business name every 12 weeks or when there's something new, like I see a lot of, you see links in bio and there's like 20 things. And I'm like, what do you actually do? I don't know. Yeah. And as you said, just the basics are the best, and focusing on that. And I think a lot of the time, the irony of that is what actually really helps people. When people come to us, sure, we can offer some life experience in our opinion. Yeah. But we're there to help people with their training, the nutrition. Yeah. And lifestyle is a big part of that, but we're not there to delve across those barriers. We're there to go, hey, I'm going to specialize in these things, and these things will help you in this realm. Yeah. And with that other stuff,
there's other people that specialize. Like I have a lot of clients that work with counselors as well as us. And like, although I can, give my opinion and advice, it's just my opinion. It's not an actual qualified, anything that I've gone to university to do. So I think it's just really important to go to the right people for the right help. Otherwise, you're just kind of in this cycle of like, maybe they help a little bit, but then, they don't. And you just go back to the start and like see the same people in the same cycles, 12 months, because they haven't gone and got the right help. They just went and did another 12-week course. And then they got out to the back of it and did another one because it was cheap instead of going to someone that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it? It seems to be again, it's sort of like everything kind of comes around with fashion and it just keeps recycling.
We're back here again.
What are some of the things, I guess, or real like pet hates that you have with the industry or things that really grind your gears or get under your skin that you would love to change that would help people really leverage, I guess, a better relationship with training and nutrition, but I guess lower that barrier to entry? There seems to be, for example, supplementation, things like that. It's all well and good. Yeah. 75 hard, you mentioned it before. Yeah. When people come into the industry, what are some things that you're like, this one again?
I definitely think, I don't know why the whole keto, low carb stuff is around. Like, I guess one of the biggest things for me is why do people think that dieting needs to be so restrictive and hard? Because there's all these diets that are so restrictive, like keto and low carb stuff. People using carnivore for weight loss, all of these things that are so hard. And there's people that create their whole identity behind them. Like Tina, the carnivore coach, or Keto Sally, I made that up. Whatever, Keto Kelly, they're in their bio. And I'm like, you've just made things so much harder for people. It doesn't need to be this hard, because then they see weight loss as something that is on and off, not as a lifestyle change that you need to make to sustain it. So I think it's got better, because if you think about your parents were quite active and healthy. I'm pretty sure my mum did a lot of the dieting things like juices and detoxes and stuff like that. And yes, they're going to be around forever because they're easy. No, not easy. They're clear outcomes. You do this, you get this. And that's what people think, I think. They're do a juice cleanse, you lose 10 kilos. But we know that it's not really 10 kilos. It's stomach volume and whatever else. But I just wish people would stop making fat loss so hard and being healthy so hard. And just, I know it doesn't sell though, being just do a calorie deficit and be consistent at it. That doesn't sell as much as do keto, cut out all carbohydrates, something crazy and drastic.
Yeah. It's the things that are unsexy and unextreme derive the long-term extreme or sexy results. Yeah. It's something I like to say. And you're right. The problem is you've got all of this stuff that seems a bit sexy, because when people want to make a change, they want to feel something drastically straight away.
Straight away, yeah.
There's that novelty to it. Yeah. Which doesn't last. And it's almost harder to reconvince someone that, hey, this more conservative somewhat, it must be too easy because it's right here, would be the way to go. And I think it creates work for coaches in the industry. It probably creates work for you and Matt. You know, you've got to, I always say when you get a client as well, sometimes before education, there's re-education. Yeah. Because we have to go, okay, so where are you at right now? That's okay, but we need to maybe just reevaluate some of these things. And without bringing that client down, discuss maybe what they may have learned fact from fiction. Yeah. You probably had young athletes come to you, or, you know, young clients who don't know anything. Fantastic. Yeah. Clean slate. The best. No bad habits, right? Yeah. Which is interesting enough. Yeah. But yeah, it almost seems like we're sort of cleaning up the mess. Yeah. A little bit.
And sometimes they're like, this is too easy. And that's like the red flag for them. They're like, this isn't going to work because it's so easy. And you're like, why does everything have to be so hard? And the same thing with like training styles. Like I love like how we're kind of bringing in more functional stuff, but I wish it wasn't such always a trend for people, because I think people, like especially with hybrid training now or high rocks and things like that, like people just go from one thing to another, and this is why they never achieve anything. You know, like they're like the same girl's like, I want to build a booty and build legs. Next minute she's doing 2 Pilates sessions, a high rocks and a CrossFit, thinking that she's going to grow anything. You know, like it's just like we need to be more clear, especially as like evidence-based coaches, that if you want to achieve X, you have to do Y, not do everything and then expect some sort of outcome. Mm-hmm. And I understand it's fun and it's entertaining to do all these different types of training, but like there's a reason why you haven't achieved anything, right? Mm-hmm. Because you just keep recycling around the trend every year.
Let's talk about consistency. Yeah. This is good, right? This is something we wanted to touch on. You've built an amazing physique, right? You got your pro card last year, IFBB, wellness. Yeah. It's a very, very popular category. Now there's a lot of females that want to get to that point where they want to have that physique. Why is consistency so important in training? Unpack that for me a little bit. I want you to explain it.
Consistency, especially in terms of training, because when you are building muscle, you essentially need to go into the gym, damage that muscle so it is being repaired, fueling it with food, obviously. But like, if you're going into the gym and you're doing different shit each time, then you're doing a run next week, you're not giving your body anything to really base growth on, because like one week you're challenging it, yes, the next week you're not, and it's a different system of energy. And then you're doing Pilates, which is doing fuck all for muscle growth. And then you're going back to doing one session. Essentially, you've done 2 productive sessions in 2 weeks. So like, it's like going and building like brick by brick a house. Like that's each session one. And it takes a fucking long time, even as someone that is an enhanced athlete like myself. But without doing brick by brick, you get nowhere. And you're taking a brick away when you don't train, or when you're doing in a session that was like subpar, or you did some sort of cardio session. So like building muscle is really hard, and it's something that you just need to be consistent with week after week, the same plan. Stop changing the plan as well. Like I think the longest plan that I stayed on was like 24 weeks, same thing. And some people would be like, my coach didn't change my training plan. And you're like, well, do you need to? Do those exercises work for you? Do you get what you need out of those exercises? Are you progressing in those exercises? If that was like a yes, you're like, well, you don't need to change your training plan. And I understand it's boring for some people. So like in a gen pop sense, like yes, we can change up the exercises to keep them entertained, but that's all we're doing is entertaining the client, right? It's not for their benefit.
It's a conversation I have with clients all the time, that I've started to push back with a little bit more over the years with experience. And I sort of rephrase it and go, look, this is up to you. Yeah. If you want to maximize results, this is why we're doing it. But if we want to add some element of entertainment, fair enough. And there is that blend of, the best plan is the one you can stick to, right? And I get that. How do you position that with clients, aside from what you've said, when you get that pushback? What do you usually say to them?
Exactly kind of what you said. Like, this is what I always say, like, this is what I do for my advanced clients. And then the client's like, oh, I want to be advanced.
I like it. I like that you've done that. A little bit of carrot on the stick.
But usually I'm just like, hey, they actually really love, like when they get on the same plan and they're seeing results week after week, they love that and they don't want to change. So I don't usually have a lot of kickback. The ones that I do have kickback from are obviously the new clients that are used to training plans changing every week or every 4 weeks. And I'm usually just like, this is an approach that I use for my advanced clients. This is going to allow me to know that you are going to get progress week after week. If I'm changing the plan too often, I don't know if you're getting stronger or weaker. I don't know if you're going to get that progress that you want. And they're usually like, okay. And then I design a plan essentially that they love and that they're able to stick to. And that's the bringing the entertainment into it, because they need to actually enjoy the training that they're doing. But when you really get a client to focus on the progress, like I want to get stronger, one more rep each week, like they have that buy-in of like, I'm doing something that is actually going to create an outcome. So I don't really have to do a lot of like, psychology around that whatsoever.
Yeah, I love that. I like how you unpack and explain the whys behind it.
Yeah.
But also explain focusing on the performance and the progress. I think especially in, the gaining phase, in the cutting phase, it becomes the easier part.
Yeah.
At some point when you've been through both phases.
Don't know what type of training you do in your cutting, but mine's not easy.
Well, in the respect that
you just have to maintain numbers.
Would you rather force food in and just like absolutely kill yourself, every time you're just trying to find the extra rep?
Yeah.
Or would you rather like, I'm hungry. Yes, all right, this is training, this is hard, but I'm not trying to get PBs.
It's a different type of hard, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It's a different kind of suck.
Yeah.
But I often think because it's a shorter duration and
you can get over it.
But here's the clincher for me, and I don't know if you agree, but in the cutting, the carrot on the stick is, this was so hard, but holy shit, look at me now.
Yeah.
And week to week, to a degree sometimes, not always, but there's something.
Yeah.
There's a change.
You see an immediate response. In a build, you're like, I don't really know what's going on here, but I hope something's happening. Yeah.
And I think that's where people get caught up with it. Like you said, it's good for them to say, hey, now instead of the aesthetics, let's focus more on the performance, numbers, but also it's body building. Like that's where the physique that you want is built. It's not in the cutting.
No, it's in that suck. I was actually talking to my clients about this because like one client was like, I'm really uncomfortable in this build and I just don't feel good within myself. And I was like, this is exactly how it should feel. And this is where people, I don't think Alex Hormozy did this one, but I'm like, this is like, I'm going to chop this up, but this is where people give up. And this is why people don't achieve shit, because they can't sit in the uncomfortable. And this happens at the extremes, like building, dieting, in relationships, in business. Like we just need to get better at sitting in uncomfortable situations. Because like people think building and they think, oh, it's so much fun. You get to eat heaps of food, but you're actually like, I fucking hate food and I fucking hate training. Like, that's how I feel at this point in time. My body hurts. I'm heavy. I'm unfit.
Yeah.
I'm slow. None of my clothes fit. Like, and this is like how it feels. But I'm like, that's how it's meant to feel. That's when you're like, I'm here doing it.
That's I think that, when you're peaking, when you're getting into those depths of the block, I like to refer to it as marinating. Marinating in the gains.
Yeah.
We often think when we cut, we can kind of get into a deficit and we can see progress, but that whole accumulation of volume.
Yeah.
I don't know about if you've met people who go, I'm going to do 6 weeks of gaining, 4 weeks of cutting.
Yeah. You're like,
and it's almost like, I remember when I was at that point, you think you've like found the law, the way to stay shredded and gain, which doesn't happen to a degree. So it is. It's one of those things where it's like when it is uncomfortable, even in the cutting phase, usually that's when the progress is being made.
Yeah.
So that reframer is really smart.
Yeah.
When it comes to enhancements, what do you think people get wrong, athletes and maybe female athletes specifically, when they want to transition from natural to enhanced?
So many things. Where to start? One would be like starting too early before they've reached their genetic peak. And I think people can be like, well, you did PEDs. Yeah, I actually was pro in a natural federation before I started PEDs, obviously. And then I went to figure in that natural federation and they said that I was too big. So I have a genetic component to my body that allows me to build muscle and better than some to a degree. They're better than me, obviously.
There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish.
And then and even in my situation, I started too early. And that's something that I actively talk about. Like I started with people that didn't really know what they were doing. I didn't have the right guidance and I didn't have the right source of where I was getting it from. And so although I got okay results, I would have got much better results if I was meeting it with proper nutrition actually tracking my training instead of just going and doing whatever, because I think that's what we all did at one stage. I was like, I'm just going to go train legs today, or I'm just going to do upper body. And so my beginning of that process was not the way that it should have been. And that's where I kind of teach from a point of like, I've done this the wrong way. Please don't do it that way. Because I would have got so much more. I probably I didn't get what I needed out of it. I probably fucked around too much to even get a good response from it. So one is like, have your nutrition and training on point. And I guess people are like, oh, it's really hard. Well, then don't do PEDs if you find nutrition and training hard. That seems pretty like straightforward, right? But like there are literally people that will use PEDs as a way of like kind of band-aiding their shitty diet or band-aiding their crap training. And I have questions all the time for people that are like, should I run a cycle of Anavar? And I'm like, girlfriend, you don't even know how to diet or like eat well. Like you go out every weekend binge eating. Fuck no. Like I just the psychology of people like just drives me insane when it comes to PEDs. Like they just think it's something that you just throw in, get the results, like take out, throw back in, and especially things like Anavar and orals, like it's toxic for the body, and it's also like the risk of side effects is so high for women, especially when coaches have no idea how to dose that as well, you know, and people just assume that that's what I would use. And I'm like, no, it's not what I would use. Like at the beginning when I had no idea what I was doing, yeah, sure. But like in 2025, no. And there's obviously context for that. People will use it in different contexts, but I wouldn't. And like people also think that athletes use so much. Yes, there are athletes that absolutely abuse PEDs, but it's just not worth it for me in particular, especially when I'm planning to have a child and when I want to maintain femininity. Like there's things that people don't realize as well in terms of side effects that can occur from even a short duration of an anabolic. Like, so one, hit or even just try to get as close to your genetic potential as possible, because like by doing that, you will figure out whether you want to continue this bodybuilding thing or not. So I think there are a lot of women diving into PEDs that don't even know if they want to make a career of bodybuilding. And my question would be, why the fuck are you going to take PEDs if you're only going to do this for another year? Don't make sense.
Yeah, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, exactly.
Pun intended.
There it is. And like, yeah, like I would only ever use PEDs if I was wanting to gain a pro card, compete professionally. But there are so many people, especially bikini athletes, which fucking drive me insane, that they're just doing this on an amateur level to come fucking 12th. It ain't worth it. From like a physical standpoint, from a financial standpoint, like there's just so many no's in that situation.
Yeah, the compromises on your health, I don't think are truly well understood enough. You know, people reach for PEDs like supplements. You know, it obviously is an extension of a supplement to some degree. And like you said before, it's almost a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
People look for it to go, well, I'm being a bit lazy.
My diet.
And that'll do the work for me. But as you said, it is something that has to come after all of the other things.
Yeah.
First, it's like a pyramid, you know, it's right at the top.
Yeah.
Really. And then even then, you know, there's always things that you can do better. And it is the last protocol for it. But I also found, you know, with myself going to the enhanced realm, very new to it over the last 12 odd months.
Yeah.
The lack of education and misconception is just rife. Yeah. And as you said, there are a lot of people using it that one don't even look like they're using it sometimes, or shouldn't be using it or them, because there is a group. It's not one.
Yeah, it's not one.
And I always remember back when I was playing football in New Zealand soccer, I remember I was starting to go to the gym and whatnot. And, you know, my dad went to the gym and it was helping me with football. You know, I was getting buffer, I was getting stronger. Being a smaller person, it helped me because I was playing men's football, not getting knocked off the ball.
Yeah.
And I remember this gentleman came up to me after training one night and he goes, Alex, he goes, I want to talk to you about something. I said, oh yeah. And he goes, thinking about getting on steroids. And I was like, and you know, I was starting to learn about a lot of the things. It was something that I was really interested in. I was reading up on it. It's what I wanted to study. Yeah. And I said, okay. I said, well, I don't really have a lot of experience with that, but you know, why? And he said, well, you know, I'm thinking like, I just want to get jacked. And I said, well, do you even go to the gym at the minute? And he's like, not really. I'm like, do you track your calories? He's like, no. And I was like, can you tell me what you think steroids are?
Yeah.
because I'd already had a prior conversation with someone else. So I just wanted to kind of get clear. And he goes, well, it's a pill. You take it and you get big. Right? Now, easy to laugh. And I was like, okay, I don't want to laugh because like, maybe we've been there. Well, they do, but people think that about protein powder and creatine sometimes.
Especially
creatine. That's the biggest anabolic. Creatine. That's a secret right there. But I said, okay, well, look, I'm not, again, super educated, but that's not how it works. They said there's a whole range of things. I said, but I would highly advise you not do this because there are risk factors and you should probably start off with just going to the gym, get a program, progressive overload, build some muscle, diet, see if you like it. I said, because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I feel that even now, there is a lot of people, even in the gym space, that just, I meet a lot of, I don't know about you, Emily, with females. I think maybe it is Anavar. It seems to be the one. They just kind of jump on. It's like the going rate.
Yeah.
I see a lot of young men that are taking testosterone in their early 20s.
Blasting it.
They are on like a mil a week. And I mean, they look like balloons. And I asked, I'm like, why, because they tell me. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, if you understand how your hormones are, you should be peaking on testosterone.
Yeah.
And how long have you even been training? Not even 2 years. You don't even look like you train. Do you understand the risks? And for me, it's that whole make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Maybe you've not had the advice, but also ask some questions.
Yeah.
Because it's not now it gets you, it's down the track. You mentioned fertility. It's so important. You see a lot of people in their 30s and it's like, where are you now? You don't even train, but now you're on recovery peptides and all these other things. And I just think it's such a shame. That's why I'm sharing my journey, because I hope if I can at least give someone a, hey, just before you go down that road, just know what you're in for.
Yeah, and I think like obviously there's things that do improve health when it comes to PEDs, and I think that's what people forget as well. Is like we think PEDs and we think Anavar, Primo, D-Bol, whatever. I don't know.
Street stuff.
Yeah, like the trend, like that's
the trend twins. That doesn't help.
That's what people think when they say PEDs, but it's actually like performance enhancing drugs. It's a banner and there's a heap underneath there. So like obviously, like when I say like bikini girls using PEDs, I'm more relating to like bikini girls using anabolics, like because they can actually probably in a healthy way use things like thyroid support, growth hormone to a degree if they need it. Like there are PEDs that are like going to help with especially like thyroid downregulation or, look, they would probably use clenbuterol or something like that as well. Is it necessary? No, you can lose weight without it. For some people, it may not be the drug of choice because it could make them more anxious and jittery and whatever. Like there's always a side effect to what you're taking. So you need to understand that as well. And then like a lot of the women, especially in my area of like level, will take HRT. So they'll pop their progesterone and testosterone up to good levels, not ridiculous levels, but like optimal levels. And I wouldn't say that that is like abuse of PEDs whatsoever. That's just been healthy and appropriate with what you're using, because essentially, like if people don't know, I don't know if people know, but like when you are dieting, you get a lot of downregulation of hormones anyway. So this is why people take HRT or TRT, right?
I think the key there is the replacement
therapy. Replacement, not super physiological. I can't say that word.
I know, I always trip up on it too.
Super physiological.
No, I just think of like what is it now? The Goku. Then I'm terrible. Dragon Ball Z. I'm sorry. Like,
so like, that's obviously like when you see like like bodybuilders, they're taking super physiological levels of things for the reason to get that response, right? But a lot of people do not need to take that because you only take that if you're trying to look for a certain outcome of being a bodybuilder. So when you're taking like when the boys in their early 20s are taking ridiculous amount of tests, it's throwing out so many other hormones. It's unnecessary. Like they don't even need to, like you said, be taking at that age. Like maybe when your levels start to decline, pop a little bit of test in. And that's healthy at that point then. But yeah, I think PEDs are largely misunderstood because as soon as someone says like, they ask me like, oh, are you on PEDs? They assume like Tren or something.
Yeah, they always go to the harshest drug.
You're like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
Yeah, and I think it's just because of social media.
Yeah.
What they see, and there's just so many misconceptions around that. And the stereotype of drugs, steroids, like you said, they're such a banner. I mean, think Tour de France, for example, they're not massive.
Yeah.
So, but hang on, they're taking performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
It's a different type of drug.
Yeah.
Does a different thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think it's so one dimensional. And people just think, oh, if you take steroids, it's all the same thing with the same outcome. It's like, oh no, there is just so many layers to it.
It's like a lot of my women that are 45 plus going through perimenopause, menopause, they will use HRT then. Perfectly healthy. But like, yeah. And then if someone said that to them, like, what are you taking? They're like, testosterone. They're like, oh, what? Like,
yeah.
So like women need testosterone as well.
Correct.
Just letting you go. No, guys.
The danger's always in the dose.
Yeah, exactly.
The danger's always in the dose. And I think that context is really king.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this for a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about future goals. This is a really big year for you and Matt. You're going to America.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Talk us through what the goals are, what the aims are.
So this is my last couple of weeks of my last ever build, which is really cool. So like that's carried me in terms of how I felt during this build as well. Usually it's like, oh, fuck me, Dad. But this one's been okay. And then we go to Japan for 2 weeks for a holiday. We come back and then essentially we start prep very soon after that for July shows. So we do June, July, August. So it'll be Chicago, Vancouver, Tampa, Texas. String of shows. My idea and my goal is to qualify for Olympia, which is like a wild goal, right? Like to see the people on Olympian stage and to be able to get there one day, like that's the goal and that's what I'm trying to move towards. And then that will be in October. So that means I would have won 3 pro cards in 3 federations, gone to Olympia in my bodybuilding career, and then I can call it quits.
And then relax on a beach and sip pina coladas for the rest of your days.
Yeah, like a lot of our stuff in terms of business will change as well. Because at the moment, we're kind of like, we're bodybuilders, but we do gen pop stuff. So it's hard sometimes because I get a lot of people wanting comp prep and I just don't, it's not where my heart is anymore. So I have a few girls that I comp prep and I love it for them, but it's not where my business model is. My business model is parents, busy people wanting to get fit and wanting to take their health seriously.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's like the shift that will be happening. And then I'll have planning on having second child next year.
Exciting.
Like we talked about, I don't want Luna just being a...
Like me, the only child. No, it's all right. My mom and dad did a great job.
They did a great job.
It's great to, I mean, we discussed this the other day in the gym. It's nice to have at least 2.
Just a sibling of some sort.
It sounds like you and Matt have got a tremendously exciting 12 months.
Yeah, it will be really cool. And then Matt's going to just hang his boots up too, obviously. Like, he has a fantastic physique, but people don't realize how big those boys are overseas. There
are levels.
They are fucking so many different levels. And like, when you talk about genetically blessed on the dick, like those guys are, as well as obviously like doing the work that they have done. But a lot of the people at the top, like, they're just huge.
It is true. The like you think about, is it Sam who won the Olympia and just the amount of muscle on their front. And I don't think that is what people, without getting too off topic here, but people don't realize there is yes, these guys are doing all the right things and then some, but they are genetic predisposed.
Yeah.
Like, we could take all the drugs in the world and just still not look like certain people.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And then there is a point where, like you said, people go, oh, we'll just take more drugs. But I'm like, yeah, but as you just said, there is a consequence and there is more to life.
Your body will
at some
kick
point.
back. And there still is a point where your body will not go past. I believe that so much because there are guys that are like, they've been doing this for so long and pumping so many drugs and they look exactly the same.
Yeah, there is just a limit. And that's when, like you said, you got to play it smart and be like, hey, I had a great run.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Before we close out, some rapid fire questions, just a bit of fun, just a bit more about Emily. So you've got a last meal. Might be in comp prep. You can have entree, you can have dessert, you can have, a drink with it. What is it? What is your favorite food?
I'm so boring when it comes to this because I'm like, I try so many different things, but I always come back to the same thing. A grilled burger with like yochi. That's done.
Yeah, easy, simple.
Easy, simple.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? You can have more than one person. You can have 2 if you want.
2 people?
Yeah, I'll give you 2. Because otherwise it'd be a bit more of a dinner party. I find it more entertaining. Someone dead and alive.
Look, I would definitely have like dinner with like Alex Hormozy and Layla Hormozy. I just love business stuff and learning from that stuff. So
those guys would be fun. And they're into fitness too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last one, a bit more serious. If you could get a message to everyone over a text message, I said, you've got a text message right now. You can send it. It's going to get to every single person's phone on the planet and they're going to read it. What would you want them to see?
Oh my God.
Naked selfie.
No. Just send me a nude.
Gotcha. Just the website link in the bio.
Oh, man. I don't know. I would just say, like, be nice to everyone. Be nice to each other. Join King Buddies. Click the link below.
That's it. You gotta get the business plug in there somewhere, right? You gotta get the business plug. Which leads me to ask, where can people find you? If they want to find out more about you, they want to follow along with you and Matt, King Buddies, where can they go?
Our page is just a mix. It's always a shit show, but people love it. So you can just do my Instagram page, which is Emily_King Buddies, and then my website's just kingbuddies.com. Easy as that.
Fantastic. Emily, I appreciate you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck with 2025. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Guys, thanks for watching. As you know, if you enjoyed this, give it a like, give it a share, and YouTube's a clever bugger. So if you're on there, you probably should recommend and watch this video that is popping up right now. Go on, click it.